From the Weather NorCal Command Center, this is your afternoon update.
Hello everyone, I'm meteorologist Mike Krueger. This is your afternoon update. Want to thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon. We got a heat wave, and we've been dealing with the heat wave since late last week, this past weekend. You know, if you've been in the Northstate, but the heat wave is pretty much ending today. We started off the work week with still some very hot temperatures, still some advisories out there as far as heat is concerned, mainly in the mountains, but we're on that downward trend, and it's still going to be hot any way you look at it. We are in July, even normal highs this time of the year in the valley, in particular in the upper 90s to about 100 degrees. But that all being said, highs will be dropping to right around or even just below normal for this time of the year, with no big heat waves overall in the overall forecast in the long range. Hazy, smoky, pretty much anywhere you go with the exception of the immediate coast. Even Trinity County, I think we'll see some haze and smoke out there for today, and still hot, about 100 degrees. We'll call it mainly mid to upper 90s, even 100 degrees in the valley. And it does look like mainly in the 90s for many of the higher elevations. Here's a look at your fire forecast, your weather forecast, fire conditions that is. So the winds, yes, they're picking up this afternoon. No big shockers, no big surprises, and as I always say, no big wind events. That's always the key. And you can see by tomorrow morning, the winds are dying down. They're picking back up again in the afternoon on Wednesday, and then they die down again, most likely picking back up for Thursday afternoon as well. So what does that mean for our fire weather risk? Combining heat, combining humidity, and also including in there the temperatures as well. And of course the winds. So here's what we're looking at here. Humidity levels are the numbers that you see on the screen there. So you can see it's going to be very low humidity. We are seeing anywhere from moderate to high for the valley, for the mountains to the north and east of the valley. That's normal, that's typical, that's nothing unusual. We just have that elevated fire weather risk as usual, and as usual, you need to use extra caution to prevent any fires from starting. Same story. Looks like a bit of a carbon copy for your Wednesday, doesn't it? We're not looking at much change there, and we are going to be looking at going down that road most likely going into Thursday afternoon as well. Talking about the smoke, and again, always remember that the smoke forecast is really reliant on how accurate the actual wind forecast is, and number two, what the activity is coming in from the fire. So just bear that in mind when we look at this smoke forecast. So it's mainly the Green and Butler fires that we have our eyes on that's producing the most amount of smoke. We're going to be looking at those south winds through the afternoon today. For the Green fire, that's going to push the smoke to the north and eventually to the east, mainly north of Bernie, but MacArthur, Fall River Mills, Aden, even El Turris eventually seeing some of that smoke. Now for the Butler fire, the winds are blowing in from the northwest, pushing the smoke to the south and east. So it looks like most of the smoke is going to be in western Siskiyou County associated with the Butler fire. Then going into midnight tonight, that smoke continues to push off to the east. Still some smoke in western Siskiyou County, and we're starting to see things begin to kind of settle back down over where the fires are themselves. Now, again, what we see here is the cooler temperatures overnight. That cooler air sinks down into the valleys and it brings the smoke along with it. That will make for some more hazy and smoky skies in areas where they did get to see some clearing. By midday Wednesday, we are going to rinse and repeat that forecast once again as the smoke for the Green fire moves to the north and east, and for the Butler fire moves down to the south and to the east. Now, conditions change rapidly, as you know, with the fires, and I give detailed forecasts on the fires, what's going on with the fires, the works in the morning updates. Not so much in the afternoon update like the one you're watching, or even in the evening update. But you can always check the latest information at weathernorcal.com and then click on the fire danger section for the latest information. The heat, yeah, it's still a heat advisory for western Siskiyou and even into Lassen and eastern Plumas counties as well. But overall, the temperatures are dropping thanks to that ridge of high pressure breaking down a little bit here. I want you to take a look at the trend that we're seeing right now. Main bubble of heat over the Gulf of Alaska, another bubble of heat over the desert Southwest. As we go for the next 7 days, that trend, those areas of high pressure, that heat is pretty much going to stay put. You can see it moves around a little bit here and there, gets a little bit weaker, then strengthens again. But bottom line, we've got cooler, more mild air stuck and really in between those two bubbles of heat. And as a result, we're in between that, and that gives us cooler temperatures. And I say that because it's still going to be hot. And that's why the banner up there says not as hot. The heat wave we experienced this past weekend and even yesterday, that's coming to an end as temperatures are just moderating to right around or just below normal for this time of the year. The normal high in Redding is 100 degrees, but we will most likely be in the upper 90s on average for the next 10 days, although you can see even a little bit cooler by the time we get to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with highs there in the mid 90s. So yeah, no big heat waves in the forecast. Wanted to show you this too. The water vapor is not showing much moisture in the atmosphere for Northern California. That being said, yesterday we did see just enough for those thunderstorms to develop in parts of basically north of the valley last night. We could see a repeat of that again late this afternoon and evening, but the forecast model is really not picking up on that. But with that said, the forecast models didn't pick up on last night's thunderstorms either. So we could see that potential tonight. I think we can see that potential again for Thursday afternoon and Thursday night as well. But there you can see there's Wednesday, right? You see just the clouds. It's not showing any rain, but as I mentioned, Wednesday evening, Wednesday night, we could see another round of thunderstorms, and we can see that again for Thursday. We'll see. But for now, I don't have any thunderstorms in the forecast set in stone, but it is something just to remember that north of the valley, there could be some of that activity. Hazy, smoky, depending on where you are. Temperatures are going to be upper 90s for the north end of the valley to around 100, and in the mid 90s, south end of the valley. 80s, 90s, even some triple digits for the higher elevations with low to mid 60s for the coast. Tonight, we're looking at temperatures in the low to mid 60s for the valley, 50s and 60s for the higher elevations. And for the coast, temperatures in the low 50s with that fog. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast for the valley. Temperatures upper 90s to about 100 degrees for Redding. For Red Bluff, mid 90s on average. And for Chico, low to mid 90s for your daytime highs. Let's take a look at the coast. Low 60s, partly to mostly cloudy skies. Inland, mid 90s for your highs, as well as Trinity County. And for Siskiyou County, Modoc County, and the Eastern Mountains, smoky, hazy at times for the next few days. Temperatures dropping there. For Mount Shasta, you're looking at temperatures around the low 90s. For Alturas, also low 90s, but mid 90s for your daytime highs for Susanville and the Eastern Mountains in general. That is your afternoon update. I'll be back again this evening at 6 o'clock. Have a great rest of your day.
Construction season is well underway in the Northstate, and we'd like to remind drivers to slow down around work zones. Keep Caltrans workers safe when they're on the job, and remember to be work zone alert when you see the color orange. Remember to pay attention to signs, merge early, avoid distractions, and don't speed. This message is brought to you by Caltrans District 2.